Early Christian church fathers even interpreted Psalm 82 as meaning that there are other gods.
Now, you hear that sound in the background? That's what he does when he puts up a screen. And here is the screen that was put up. I'm not sure if that's coming through. But here's the first of the, I said I wanted to get to some of the early church stuff. Here is a quotation he puts up from Tertullian. He doesn't give references, unfortunately. It will be impossible that another God should be admitted when it is permitted to no other being to possess anything of God. Well, then, you say, we ourselves at that rate possess nothing of God, but indeed we do and shall continue to do, only it is from him that we receive it and not from ourselves. For we shall be even gods if we shall deserve to be among those whom he declared, I said you are gods, Psalm 82:6, and God stands in the congregation of the gods, verse 1. But this comes of his own grace, not from any property in us, because it is he alone who can make gods. Now, what... And years ago, I wrote a book called Is the Mormon My Brother? And in one of those chapters, I dealt with the concept of theosis, an Eastern Orthodox concept of deification. And in there, I documented very fully from numerous sources the fundamental flaw in the utilization of patristic sources, Christian patristic sources, by Mormons. And specifically the fact that they ignore one fundamental reality. If you are going to try to assert that Tertullian believed what you believe, that men can become gods, as Mormons understand that, then you would have to find Tertullian saying that God was once a man. And you would have to find Tertullian saying that there are many gods. Even in this citation, he says, it will be impossible that another God should be admitted when it is permitted to no other being to possess anything of God. And even when he says, be made gods, but this comes of his own grace, not from any property in us. In Mormonism, we are all the same species as God. We were all pre-existence intelligences, and we're simply at different places of exaltation. There is no way to, with even the slightest bit of honesty, read Tertullian and think that Tertullian was a crypto-Mormon. Then why do we see this stuff? Because they're not reading Tertullian. That's why. They're reading the internet. They're getting a quote from a professor someplace. They're not reading Tertullian. And they have no care as to whether they're accurately reflecting what Tertullian actually taught or not. They just don't care about something like that. It's better to just try to promote Mormonism. And so that's what happens. One more quote.
They just did. It's not up to debate. It's just a fact. Also, it's important to note, if God is a Trinitarian God of two spirits and one being, then how can two spirits and one being sit down at a table of other gods? Because this is an essence idea.
See, there was no table of other gods to begin with. There's nothing about sitting down or anything else.
That God can't sit down. That's impossible. It doesn't make any sense. And of course, this is the Old Testament. So this is before Jesus Christ was on earth. So, did he have a physical body before he was on earth? Christians don't really know. That's up for debate. And in fact, the Trinity before Jesus Christ may have been a duality. It may have just been two spirits. But no, Jesus was the Word of God made flesh. And of course, words are just expressions. They're the declaration of God. Maybe Jesus was just an omnipresent immaterial spirit as well. So three omnipresent immaterial spirits that can't be divided, that know no bounds, but you've differentiated and divided them together, are sitting down at a table? No, that's not possible. In fact, that sounds like Hellenistic Greek philosophy. It doesn't sound like the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now you might be saying, well, the Bible says that God has wings.
And it goes on from there. I evidently, and again, we already refuted his misrepresentation of the Athanasian Creed. Can't distinguish, but you did distinguish being a person. He just refuses to deal with his sources correctly. But I thought, and I must have missed it, at one point he put up on the screen another quotation from Theophilus of Antioch. If he, man, would incline to the things of immortality, keeping the commandment of God, he should receive as a reward from him immortality and should become God. It might have been right after the other one. Now that I think about it, maybe that's why it didn't pop up. But there you get this idea. He should receive as a reward from him immortality and should become God. So was Theophilus a polytheist? Did Theophilus believe that there are many gods? That's the assertion that's being made. But I looked it up, and it's in a section he's writing to Autolycus. Theophilus of Antioch is writing to Autolycus. This is a section called The Nature of Man. And here's what he says. But someone will say to us, was man made by nature mortal? Certainly not. Was he then immortal? Neither do we affirm this. But one will say, was he then nothing? Not even this hits the mark. He was by nature neither mortal nor immortal, for if he had made him immortal from the beginning, he would have made him God. Now notice, man is a creature. He is made by God. Nowhere does Theophilus even hint at the idea that God himself was created or was himself a man, any of these things. That's completely outside the realm of any of the early church fathers. Again, if he had made him mortal, God would seem to be the cause of his death. Neither them immortal nor yet mortal did he make him, but, as we have said above, capable of both. So if he should incline to the things of immortality, keeping the commandments of God, he should receive as reward from him immortality and should become God. But if, on the other hand, he should turn to the things of death, disobeying God, he should himself be the cause of death to himself. For God made man free and with power over himself. That then which man brought upon himself through carelessness and disobedience, this God now vouchsafes to him as a gift through his own philanthropy and pity when men obey him. For as man disobeying, he drew death upon himself, so obeying the will of God, he who desires is able to procure for himself life everlasting. For God has given us a law and holy commandments, and everyone who keeps these can be saved, and obtaining the resurrection can inherit incorruption. Now, there's things we could take issue with all along there, but the point is, it is very plain that Theophilus is not a crypto-Mormon. He does not believe God was once a man. He does not believe we're of the same species. He doesn't believe any of the things that would be necessary for the misreading of his words, the misreading produced by Kwaku L.